The Board of Public Works meeting for July 19th is in session. Jim, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hopkins, lead us in invocation, please.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And hope you'll join me in the invocation today. Heavenly Father, we know that your grace is sufficient for us, and that your strength is made perfect in weakness. And we understand our weakness and our need for God. So today I just lift up our mayor, this Board of Public Works, those institutions that they oversee, the fire department, the police department, the EMS, utilities departments, the park departments, all those others that are involved, the many facets of business and government. And we just thank you, Lord, for giving them strength to meet today's agenda and to doing it in a right way, an honest way, one that would be pleasing to our God. And we'll give you praise in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. I'm filling in for the mayor today. He got stung in the eye, so the next prayer out for him to speedy recovery. We do the roll call, please.
Brian Daub.
Present.
Becky Gibson.
Present.
David Nutty.
Present.
Jim Barrett.
Any additions or corrections to the reading of the minutes from July 6th meeting?
We don't report on the executive session.
It needs to be for July 6th and July 8th executive session. This is right here.
Okay. It was July 6th and July
8th executive session.
Okay, so the reading of the minutes from the Board of Works meeting on July 6th and the executive session from July 8th. Any additions or corrections?
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, on new business, we have Kathy Thomas. I'm sorry, we gotta do a vote on it?
All in favor?
All in favor, I'm sorry. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, now we're to new businesses. Kathy Thomas with Walmart, sorry about that, second time. Requesting approval for the Fayette County Fair Parade.
Yes, I did speak to Police Chief Bolos, and he gave us the okay to use the same route that we use in years past. I also talked to the street department, and they will put out barricades for us on Friday, so those will be available for Sunday. The parade is August the 1st. Lineup starts at 8 a.m. at 21st and Western at the Ivy Tech parking lot. The parade route will go across Western Avenue on 21st Street and then turn left north onto Grand Avenue. And then the parade route will continue to 27th Street and then we'll cross over Park Road to the fairgrounds.
Thank you for having it going down Grand. I live on Grand and it's really nice to be able to walk out the front door and be able to see.
Yeah, it's a
the
nice
kids,
area.
so. Make a motion, okay.
Second?
You're all set?
Great, thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll get this by C, okay?
Yeah, I hope.
Ms. Barrett, for the Children's Christmas Outreach, requesting permission to conduct a boot drive.
Yes, we got rained out the other day.
It's hard not to do last couple of weeks.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of
Well,
rain.
You know, the lightning and the thunder, it was like early and we weren't sure how it was gonna act and we didn't want to get anybody killed out there. I know that we will be, you know, over on, by the fire station and up on 24th Street because of the construction, and that's fine. We are asking for Saturday, July 31st.
And I assume that when they come here with a date set, they've already talked to the mayor's office and that's been
Yes.
approved.
Yeah.
I believe you already talked to Diana, correct?
Yeah, yes, Vonda did, yes.
Okay.
And what's the time?
9 to 1, I believe.
Okay.
I think I've got that right, so.
And you've done this before, May, so you'll be able to check with
yes.
Brad and get with all the
Yes, yes,
safety
yes.
vests and stuff
We
like
do
that.
it twice a year, and this is very beneficial to our children. We were told that, I didn't even know this, we are the largest party in this city, and they said they didn't know what we would do without, they would do without us if we decided that we wouldn't do this. So I'm pretty proud of that. I told them, I said, okay, guys, I feel like I'm part of this, you know, can I have a chair? I've been here more than anybody.
I appreciate your organization for doing that and appreciate the city of Connersville citizens that they would donate as they
Oh,
do.
yes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good program.
Yes, it is. I'm really proud of it.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go, May.
Thank you so very
Have a good
much.
day.
I appreciate that. You do the same.
Tell you what, Steve, I forgot about you. We're gonna jump to, the public hearing for the wastewater preliminary engineer report. Steve Rubel from Strand Associates, the hearing is open.
All right, thank you very much. This public hearing that we're having here today is for the wastewater preliminary engineering report that was done in conjunction with Brad and Mike and their folks, looking at your long-term control plan and kind of next steps that need to happen there. I'm going to send around, if you don't mind, meeting registers so that we can send that in to the folks who have to certify our public hearing for this particular report. And Matt's going to run you through a presentation and give you some of the technicals.
Can we get copies of the presentation?
Absolutely. You can do that.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you. My name is Matt Smith. I'm one of Steve's coworkers. I did a lot, or am more involved on the technical side of this project, so I thought I'd be the one to go through this. So what we're talking about here is a preliminary engineering report, which is a prerequisite to submitting for Indiana State Revolving Fund for help paying for and financing water and sewer improvements. This would be a sewer improvements project, and having this public hearing is one of the needs for doing that. So the projects that we're talking about are kind of a culmination of three different things associated with your sewer utility that need to be addressed. The first and largest issue is your combined sewer overflow situation, which I'll talk about in more detail. The second thing is that your wastewater treatment plant will be required to remove phosphorus at some point in the near future here within the next couple years, so some improvements to do that. And then thirdly, there's a day-to-day operational issue where you have some influent grinders at your wastewater plant that are really kind of outdated technology and not really serving the needs of your wastewater utility, so replacing those. So as far as the presentation goes, I'm going to give an overview of current conditions, talk about the different alternatives that we looked at, talk about things like environmental impacts, which we have to look at for state revolving fund financing, talk about our recommended alternatives, the schedule for implementation, administrative requirements, and then finally public comments. And if any of you guys has any questions, feel free, obviously, while I'm presenting to go ahead and ask. So the first issue we're going to talk about is your combined sewer overflow issue. So Connersville and about 100 other communities in the state have combined sewers, and what that means is that your sanitary sewers, which are what goes down the drains in your homes and businesses and industries, go into the same set of pipes that your stormwater drainage goes into, which is what happens when you get rain and snow melt in your city. So on a normal day like today, when it's not raining, you will get about probably 3 million gallons worth of sanitary wastewater flow into your system. Your system works fine for that. It flows through a series of pipes, gets to your wastewater treatment plant, it's pumped up, it's treated, and it's discharged to the west fork of the Whitewater River. When it rains, the rainfall is anywhere from 20 to 50 times that much, and it completely inundates your system. In Connersville's case, you've got a very large trunk line that comes down Western Avenue that can at least get the flow down to near your wastewater plant. But then when it gets to your wastewater treatment plant, you don't have the pumping capacity to lift it up to any sort of treatment works, nor do you have the treatment or storage necessary to handle it once you get to that point. As I mentioned, a large part of your city is served by combined sewers, about 2,500 acres, and that delineates into about 5 different basins. And historically, you had, I believe, 5 combined sewer overflows throughout your city. Through some targeted separation that you've done over the past 10 years, you've been able to reduce that to 3. But then with these 3, we need to get to a point where once it gets down to your wastewater treatment plant, you can handle it there and do something with this extra flow. Your wastewater treatment plant, you own and operate what's called a Class 3 activated sludge wastewater treatment plant. It has a design average flow capacity of about 10.8 million gallons. And that capacity was set in the 50s when it was originally built. We think if push came to shove, right now you would probably have about a 6 MGD capacity. And the first thing that happens to your wastewater, the first thing that happens is that you grind up what comes in your wastewater. So trash and that sort of stuff gets ground up. And that's the part of your wastewater treatment plant that we are proposing to improve. I would also note the peak design flow, which is the peak amount of flow that can be treated by your wastewater treatment plant, is about 21.6 MGD. When you get a heavy rainfall event, like maybe a 3 to 4 time per year type rainfall event, the peak flow coming into your system is about 150 MGD. So you significantly exceed that wastewater treatment capacity. This is a representation of the CSO discharges that you guys have. So if you look, these are really small. If you look at this graph to the left, this is showing the average number of CSO events a year, and you've got 4 CSOs shown there. CSO 6, the one to the far right, is one of the ones that's been eliminated. But you'll see on an average year, CSO 2 will discharge about 40 to 50 times a year. 3 will discharge between 20 and 30, and 4 will discharge again between about 20 and 30. And then when you look at the average discharge volume, CSO 2 is going to discharge between 5 and 10 million gallons per year. CSO 3 is going to be between 10 and 25, and then CSO 4 is going to be between basically 200 and 300. And we think that some of the numbers on CSO 4 are skewed because the river can inundate that flow meter, and you end up in a situation where the river is actually flowing into your combined sewer system. So some of the improvements that we did earlier this year up on 5th and Western and Central, we think should help alleviate that concern. As far as the wastewater treatment plant itself, the influent grinders are just a nuisance problem. This technology was used commonly 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's been replaced for the most part at most wastewater plants by what's called an influent screen, which is kind of exactly like it sounds. It's a bar rack with really about 1/4-inch spaces in it, and that all the trash and sticks and rocks, whatever else that gets into your sewer system, is lifted up and taken out, put into a dumpster and removed from the system. Your grinders just grind whatever comes in and spit it right back out into the waste stream. So you'll end up with a situation where you end up with a lot of trash in your process tanks, which over time becomes a maintenance hassle. The grinders themselves are not very reliable and beyond their useful life. So our recommendation was to, instead of replacing those, was to go ahead and modernize the facility with a screen. And then finally, in 2023, as I mentioned before, your wastewater plant will be required to remove phosphorus. It's not currently set up to do that. And so we're also looking at improvements that will be necessary to accommodate that. So as far as the headworks alternatives, we looked at 3 different alternatives. The first one we looked at was basically no action, which is kind of the standard alternative you look at, and that's not a viable alternative. For one, the grinder situation that I just mentioned is definitely a hassle, but from a bigger picture standpoint, the combined sewer problem is a regulatory concern. So IDEM is saying you have to make these improvements to get rid of CSOs. It's a mandated process. So the second alternative we looked at was doing this alternative HW2, and that was doing a large pumping station at your wastewater treatment plant, and that would serve two purposes. The first thing would be to add the screens that would handle your normal flow, so you would your inflow flow would flow through those screens and then continue down to your wastewater treatment plant, where it would go through the existing pumps and all that. And then there would be a second part of that during wet weather that would have its own set of much larger screens and then much larger pumps to pump to a storage facility that would hold the flow until the rain ended and then let it drain back. And then the third alternative was looking essentially at a headworks facility that would just replace the existing influent facility. And the problem with that alternative was that it would be, it was just to handle the day-to-day flows of the wastewater treatment plant. It didn't include the wet weather flows as well. So, and then we also looked at wet weather storage. So with Connersville's wastewater, with your wet weather problems, if you can imagine, when you get a rainfall event, a drop of rain hits a roof, goes to a gutter, goes to a downspout, goes to a concrete sidewalk maybe, goes to a street, and goes to an inlet. So the amount of time between when a raindrop falls and when it enters your wastewater collection system is very short. And so when it rains, if you look at, and we don't have graphs in this presentation, but we have lots and lots of graphs. If you look at them, the flow in your sewer system, both going to your wastewater treatment plant and out of your combined sewer overflows, almost exactly mimics the rainfall. So you have a situation here where you have very high flows that come in very short periods. So when I say you have 150 million gallons per day coming in, that will come in and it will only last for less than an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. But if you don't do anything with it, then it will overwhelm your system and then discharges out to the river without receiving any treatment or anything, and that you just can't do that. So what we looked at was putting in storage, because along with the kind of sharp peaks means that you don't have a lot of volume that enters the system. So what we think we can do based on the data, the flow metering data that we've seen so far, is when we get to your wastewater treatment plant, we can pump that flow up and then store it in, we think about a 4 million gallon basin, hopefully smaller than that, but we're not sure yet. And then once the rain subsides, then you can drain that basin back through your wastewater plant and it will receive full treatment before being discharged to the river. And so that, instead of being discharged uncontrolled out of your existing CSOs, you get full treatment and it goes out your existing wastewater treatment plant outfall. So we looked at a couple of alternatives for this. The first is the no action alternative. Again, that's not viable. The second is wet weather storage alternative 2, and what that would be is that it would be a kind of at grade level storage lagoon. It would be a lined earthen basin, and you would pump flow up into that basin during rainfall events, and then it would drain back out. And then alternative number 3 was to look at what we call an inline storage basin, where if you can imagine the sewer coming into your wastewater treatment plant is about 20 feet deep, or between 20 and 30 feet deep. So what we thought was, well, if we could put storage down at that level, then you could just kind of more or less corral all the water before you get to your wastewater treatment plant, and then you treat it as, as your plant can treat it. The problem with that alternative is that putting 3 to 4 million gallons worth of storage that deep in the ground is very expensive, and it takes a lot of land, and it just wasn't going to be very practical.
And it has a high water table down there.
Yeah, exactly. There were a lot of other, the flood elevation is high too, and it would have been nice to do, but it just couldn't make sense. We couldn't make it work, at least not realistically. So Yeah, so we recommended alternative 2. And that part of the project may not be done in this phase. We're kind of working through that. We're not sure, or we might do a smaller version of it at this phase and see how necessary it is to add to that. That's kind of the analysis that we're doing right now.
So this is in addition to the concrete pits you were just talking about, with the pumps?
Yeah, right. So the pumps have to pump to somewhere. So this would be basically a large storage basin that they would pump into.
Right, but
Yeah.
earlier you were talking about, it almost sounded like it was a 2-sectioned part with the screen.
Yeah, right. So that facility would not have very much storage
Okay.
capability. So it would, the flow would just go through that, and it would go through one side. It would have some, but maybe a couple 100,000 gallons worth of storage, not enough to need, or not as much as we need for long-term control plans. So yeah, so it would be one side where the flow kind of passes through and goes to your wastewater plant and gets screened, and then when that is surcharged, when there's too much water going that way, then it would back up and go through a different set of screens that would go to a large set of pumps that would pump to this storage facility.
Question for you.
Sure.
So basically, the way I understand this, you're saying basically you're going to hold pump.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Elevated.
You know,
Elevated, yeah, yep.
we've been dealing this through several administrations,
Right,
numerous amounts of money.
yep.
So you think this plan is going to take care of all the CSO problems we got?
Right, so your long-term control plan, as it's currently written, is designed to get rid of, to get you to a level of control of 4 overflows in a typical year. And so the way the CSO policy is written is that if you get down to about that level, and if the impact on rates is high enough, then you can claim what's called widespread economic hardship, then that is enough. Now, certainly, I, for one, am concerned about regulations changing as things go forward.
That's my concern, because, when this initially started out, we've seen several changes with items through the years where they require more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we look at designing the lift station and designing the storage facility and designing, there will be an extension of an existing interceptor sewer as part of a later phase of this to complete the project. Our intent is to design everything so that it can be made larger in the future if it's needed, if need be, because I think at some point in time, all combined sewer overflows are going to be outlawed. If I had to guess. So yeah, we're trying not to design you into a corner where, because I think at some point in time, things are going to change and you're going to have to do more. So that's what we have had in the back of our mind as we've put these alternatives together. So, yep.
Thank you.
Along the same lines with Jim, what he was saying, is there room for a retention pond down at where the wastewater treatment plant is now?
Yeah, there is. We're actually meeting. There is one way or another. I think that it's probably going to encroach somewhat upon the
Transfer station.
the transfer station, yes. Now, I don't think it'll impact its operation or anything, we would design it so that it wouldn't. But we believe there's room one way or another. We're also looking at another alternative, which would be further, kind of on the northeast corner of the wastewater treatment plant site. The concern with that is that you're just getting close to the river, and so the entire site is within the floodway, which is a concern, but the closer you get to the river, the more often it's going to flood, and we would have to do some tree clearing for that alternative, which could be a concern, but we've got a few different alternatives that we're looking as far as where we put it on the site, but we think that we will be able to fit that on the site.
On the retention pond, would this be opened? What a concern that I'd have is the regulations would change. That all of a sudden we'd have to dome this now.
Yeah, I don't, so the retention pond idea is fairly commonly used, the one that keeps popping up in my head is Columbus, because we designed that one. With you guys being somewhat remote there, that helps. Sometimes those open basins, if you have nearby neighbors, that can be a problem. but with you guys being somewhat isolated at your wastewater plant and then not really having, you know, I don't anticipate a whole lot of odors. I mean, it's a wastewater treatment facility, so there's definitely the potential of odors. And I'm not gonna say that there isn't, but, you know, you've got somewhat of a buffer between your site and then you've got the river, and, you know, that sort of thing before you start getting to, you know, immediate neighbors that could complain about that.
But under a rain event, your solids are gonna be
Yeah, that's,
less than 5%, or maybe.
Oh, yeah,
3
it's, right, you have much less risk of odors during a wet weather event, just because, like you said, everything is so dilute that, you know, we just don't hear of complaints about it. I think the biggest concern you guys have from an odor standpoint is that screening facility, because when you take all the blunt objects out of wastewater and put it into a dumpster, that obviously can get pretty smelly. And with that, you know, you can't add odor control stuff to those, or odor control devices to those types of systems, and it's commonly done. I mean, we did a project very similar to this in Columbus with the Headworks as well. We put odor control on that, and that's right downtown, and I'm not aware of them having odor concerns with it. So, yeah, but I don't anticipate having to cover it. I just haven't heard those regulations coming down, and that would be very difficult to do. If so, I mean, regardless of how you did it, you know, I mean, 4 million gallons is a pretty big area. So yeah. So.
There's no way to hold it in the pipe going underneath Western or in the old canal bed?
Well, that's part of that. That's part of the solution. I mean, you've got a nice big 72-inch trunk line, and so, you know, one of the things that we're talking about in the short term, you know, kind of beyond the phase of this discussion, is saying, okay, what if we make this lift station a little smaller initially, make it easy to add on in the future, because, you know, we have some evidence that maybe we can get away with a smaller lift station than what we were originally thinking, and say, all right, let's see how this works. And one of the benefits of that is that if we keep the water flowing in that pipe, then that extra pipe capacity is there for storage in real time, which makes it very effective. So I think that, you know, trying to take advantage of all of those benefits is important, and that's what we're trying to do as part of this project. So.
We might be getting ahead of you, and you're probably going to answer this.
No, absolutely. You know,
But,
go ahead.
What I was thinking is, you're using the 72-inch for a combined sewer, where originally that stormwater was going to go to the river.
Yep.
So is there any more combined sewers in the planning, or is everything from this point on going to be separated and go to the combined sewer, over to the overflow?
Right,
So
so
that's combined sewer overflow, right?
combined sewer, yeah, so the intent, with the long-term control plan, as you guys probably know, has been going on for about the planning of it's probably been going on since the 80s, because that's the way it's been everywhere. But the initial phases of it over the past 10 years have been separating, doing some targeted sewer separation kind of in the farther north parts of your treatment system or your collection system, and that has allowed you to get rid of CSO 6 and CSO 5. And that's been great, but then the problem that we run into is that you can only do so much of that. You know, a lot of what's happened is that we separated enough sewer to get rid of those outfalls, but then we didn't separate those entire basins. We just separated part of it. So that additional stormwater from those basins is still coming down the pipe, so it's, you know, literally coming down the pipe. And so, you know, what we find and what I think most people have found is that if you're doing, there's a law of diminishing returns with separation, and it gets to the point if you're going to eliminate CSOs through separation at all, you really have to separate your entire system, and that just becomes not feasible. I mean, you would be talking about every street and alley and the whole city being, and if you had a 60-year implementation plan, it would be a great idea. Right, well, yeah, exactly.
Let alone the what it would do to your treatment facility with the reduced
Yeah,
flow.
right, and then there's a lot of question, at least in my mind, is if you're gonna do that, I think you would have to put in new storm sewer and sanitary sewer pipes, because the storm sewers or the combined sewers, they're kind of too big for sanitary sewer and too small for storm sewer. So if you're gonna do a new street with curb and gutter and all that stuff, and they're not designed, I mean, there's just a lot of concerns with that approach, and it just becomes not very feasible. And this is pretty commonly what I see is that usually there are a few parts of your collection system where you can, we call it the low-hanging fruit, where you can separate relatively small areas and just get rid of an outfall. That outfall is gone. You still have to deal with some of the combined sewer flow, but the outfall's still there. So now the intent is, all right, we've done as much sewer separation as makes sense. Now we have all this wet weather flow that's coming to us. Now we got to do something with it, and that's this lift station and storage facility. So. Can you go to the next slide there? There we go. Okay, so this is what the recommended alternatives look like, at least currently. So, and some of this is subject to change, but it's all going to be at or immediately adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant site. The wet weather, the lift station, the place we currently have it is on the northeast corner of the transfer station site. Again, we think we can put it there without impacting the transfer station operations. And then the storage facility, the two different locations are kind of wrapping around here, looking at the northeast corner of the wastewater plant side. This would be nicer, or this has some advantages putting it up in the northeast corner, but the proximity to the river is a concern. I mean, you're just going to have floodwaters more often, and just a lot of that could potentially become an issue. So, anyway, that's why we currently have it shown up here. It is subject to change as we work with Brad and Mike and Aaron moving forward. But yeah, that's where we have it shown it. And then, okay, I skipped a slide. The third alternative, or the third issue, is the phosphorus removal. Again, we looked at no action. We looked at two different alternatives. The first is what's called chemical phosphorus removal. With chemical phosphorus removal, you add a chemical like either alum or ferric chloride, basically a metal salt, that turns the phosphorus from a dissolved form to a soluble form where it will settle out in your sludge. And that's the alternative that we recommended for Connorsville. The third alternative is looking at what's called biological phosphorus removal. And biological phosphorus removal works well in a lot of instances, and that's where you can make modifications to your treatment plant or your treatment facility. Usually you add a couple of tanks or reconfigure tanks. But that doesn't work very well where you have very dilute influent flows, and it does work well where you have high strength waste and allowing industrial users and that sort of thing. So we didn't think that was a good fit for Connorsville.
With the sludge composition change so that we won't be able to land apply anymore?
No, the land application is still fine. Neither of the chemicals are a concern from that standpoint. Now, you'll generate more sludge. And so that's the benefit of biological phosphorus removal, if you can do it, is that you don't have the ongoing chemical costs, and you don't have the additional sludge production, but there's just certain circumstances where it's not a very good application of it, and usually CSO communities, unless they have a large industrial load, are one of them. And even in cases where we do biological phosphorus removal, we have to put a chemical system in as a backup because, biological systems can be finicky, especially with phosphorus removal. And when you have changes in temperature, changes in what, wet weather flows and that sort of thing, the biological system can upset, and so you have to have a chemical backup. So there's a couple reasons to not really pursue the biological angle. If at some point in the future, if you do a wide scale, enhancement or upgrade of your wastewater plant, it would be worth re-looking at it at that point in time. But at this point in time, kind of the quickest, easiest way to deal with it is with chemical.
Yeah, as long as we can still land a plat, I think
Yeah,
that's the most
absolutely.
cost effective.
Yeah, by far and
Yeah.
away. Yep, absolutely. And then the chemical phosphorus removal, this would have a small footprint. Basically, it's going to be a building probably smaller than this room, and bulk chemical storage tanks and some chemical feed pumps. And you don't feed very much of this chemical a day, maybe 150 gallons or something like that, and that's enough to do what you need. So, and we anticipate that being kind of in this area, somewhere where it's easy to get deliveries, but still close to the facility and the process tanks and everything.
Back on that storage basin,
Yep.
is it gonna take up, looks like it's gonna take up about half of where the compost pile is at now?
Potentially, yeah. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk to Brad and Mike about is kind of this area in general. I know there's some sort of pond back there. There's a compost pile. Just getting an understanding of how usable that land is one of the things that we're looking at here in the early stages of the project, because that's definitely a concern. And one thing with the pond back there, we've heard that that's a requirement of transfer stations. I don't personally know, so we're gonna look into the item regulations on that to see what that's there for, right.
Is it runoff for you guys? Is that just runoff?
For the compost. Compost has to
sure.
have a area
Mm-hmm.
that it can collect, and I don't know how big or deep or anything. I think that big hole just happened because we dug all the dirt out of it to build the transfer station. Hopefully we can fill that hole in most of the way.
Could you go on the south side of the wastewater treatment plant where it's at now? What shows on the grass?
Yeah, we could. The problem is that if you ever modernize your wastewater treatment plant, you're probably gonna want that area for process tanks.
Is that the lagoon area, right?
And so that's the concern there, so we don't want to, it could very well end up there. I'm not going to say that it won't, but the concern is just, there's a couple things that at some point, if you modernize your facility, you would almost certainly put in circular clarifier tanks, because that's one of the biggest kind of issues that you don't currently have. And the most logical location for that is that area to the south of the plant, so. Evaluation of environmental impacts. So one of the requirements of state funding and just doing a good job of engineers is just understanding what the environmental impact is. So one of the things they looked at is disturbed and undisturbed land, particularly if you are building something on previously undisturbed land. They want to make sure that it's not prime farm ground, or there's no archaeological relics or anything like that there. Since we're already on the existing wastewater treatment plant property, we're not too concerned about that. Historical and archaeological resources. We're not aware of anything historically that's on the wastewater treatment plant site. We're not aware of any wetlands, looking at national wetlands inventory mappers and that sort of thing. We're not aware of wetlands on the site. The site is all in the floodway, which I'll get to here. So that is definitely a concern, and that means that our facilities will be designed to operate when it's flooded and not be damaged when it's flooded, and be accessible so that you don't have to get a boat or anything to get back there.
I don't know that I cannot remember a time when it has been flooded. Do you? I mean, you might have high water table at some time or other, but I don't know that it's ever coming through the woods over to the property.
Yeah, I've seen it up in the fence. But
Oh, have you?
like back by where the dog pound used to be.
Yeah.
A couple of times, but
Yeah.
no further than that.
Yeah, and the floodway shows it going off. It shows it flooding basically to the railroad.
Yeah. Well, that's
And boy,
probably the
that's-
100-year flood.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, but yeah, it's, that's a concern.
Not that it wouldn't. I'm just.
Oh, yeah, yeah, whatever can happen would happen, yeah, sure. And then hydrology, you know, there's no, sometimes when you work around like exceptional, what they call designated waterways, which are like exceptional use streams and scenic rivers and that sort of thing, you can run into additional regulatory concerns, and we don't have that here, fortunately. So, plants and animals, we don't see any impact on endangered species or habitat. If we do have to, the biggest issue that could come up is if we have to take down trees, particularly if we work on the northeast corner of the wastewater plant. If we have to do that, then we will have to mitigate that. We'll have to plant trees somewhere else to offset that loss. There's no prime farmland. You know, there's no sinkholes or what's called karst geology that can be a concern. And then air quality, you know, there's going to be dust and that sort of thing during construction, which we try to mitigate, or try to have the contractors mitigate, you know, within reason and within common, you know, construction, you know, common construction practices. And then, you know, again, there will be an odor risk. It doesn't seem like it's a huge one now, though we could put odor control on the actual lift station itself. So that's kind of yet to be determined. In open spaces and recreational opportunities, no impact. Lake Michigan Coastal Program, obviously not applicable. And national natural landmarks, that's not applicable either. So this is kind of a repeat from our previous slide. Basically what this is showing is that as of now, we're unsure whether to, how to phase in the storage. So, you know, we may or may not put some of the storage in now. It probably makes some sense to go ahead and do that because we think it could, with relatively low amounts of storage, we could significantly reduce the number of CSO events you have. But when we look at the cost on the next page, so our capital cost for the Headworks project is about $17 million. And for the phosphorus removal project is about $731,000. So the total cost is about $17.7 million. And then when you add in the annual operation and maintenance costs and subtract out the 20-year salvage value, you end up with about an $18 million 20-year present capital work or present worth cost for the Headworks alternative, and then the about $2 million for the phosphorus removal alternative. And that the difference between that $700,000 and the $2 million is basically the cost of buying chemical over 20 years and the cost of disposing sludge, that additional sludge over 20 years.
Other than the phosphorus,
Yep.
none of this was ever part of the original stormwater plan? Wasn't there?
There was always
There was
wet
a-
weather storage
There was,
in your long-term.
and then I thought they removed it, and then they put it back in, and
Well, I don't, the most recent history I'm aware of is around 2008, and at that point in time, they had a wet weather pumping station, and then about 3.4 million gallons worth of storage, I believe. And based on our updated numbers, we think you need 4 million gallons of storage. But that part we more or less agreed with. There was also like a proposed interceptor sewer that was going to go down Eastern Avenue that was eliminated, and I think, you know, we feel that we've eliminated the need for that by doing the work at Central and Western, and is that 7th or 5th? 7th Street, there where, you know, we essentially just reworked some pipe crossings and that sort of thing to take advantage of the capacity of the 72. So some version of this, that, you know, with the exception of the phosphorus removal, some version of a large pumping station and a storage facility has been in the long-term control plan for as long as I'm aware of, even predating Strand. So, yeah.
And that's 17.9 for the retention pond. HW2 is the retention pond.
No, so this is, so the way the retention pond cost is not included in this. So there are two other phases of the project, and the way it is currently written is that the retention pond is the next phase of the project, and then your 72-inch interceptor sewer stops about 3,000 feet before your wastewater plant for some reason, and extending that all the way down would be the last phase of the project. Now, one thing we are considering is that if we do reduced storage at this phase in the game and make the lift station smaller at this phase in the game, then, you know, the idea would be that those costs would offset, you know, we would reduce the lift station cost by enough to put, you know, maybe a quarter or a half of the storage that you need and keep it within this budget. That's what we're currently working through right now.
I understand trying to work within a budget, but
Yeah.
if you reduce all those things, are we gonna come back later and?
Well,
have to-
that's the concern, and so that's why we're going
I think you were
through.
talking about that earlier. You do things as they go now instead of come back.
Yeah, sure, and that's right, I mean, the reason why we would, you know, we've been going back through combined sewer overflow data to see if we can optimize, you know, how big does this lift station need to be? Does it need to, you know, what we currently think is 128 MGD. Now, can we, you know, what if we make it 100 or 90 or 80? You know, because once you start getting above those numbers, you're talking about very infrequent rainfall events. And so that's, you know, obviously I think your point is well taken, that you don't want to do something halfway now and then have to come back in the future and do it. And certainly, like if the lift station, if we made that smaller now, we would make, the structure of the lift station would be as big as it needed to be. So the future additions to it would be, you know, adding pumps and pipes and control, you know, stuff that we can do without digging into the ground. You know, we would, you know, and the electrical service and all that would be big enough for what we think, and then kind of beyond, to make sure that we don't paint ourselves into a corner. But then also, you know, maybe it makes sense to do a little bit smaller version of this. That's,
So if we made it a little smaller,
yeah.
would an answer to that be larger holding pond? Or whatever you're calling that?
No, because it's got to get to the, I mean, one potential answer would be, you know, that last, like what I mentioned to
Oh, because it's
Brian,
not the
that-
first place it comes to, the holding pond.
Right, exactly.
I'm
It's
sorry,
a-
I was thinking different.
No, that's fine, but it's a good point, because, you know, the last part of the project that we have is that last 3,000 feet of 72-inch sewer coming to your wastewater plant. Well, that's 500,000 gallons worth of storage right there. And so, you know, it could make sense to say, hey, let's build this a little bit smaller, get half your storage in, you know, I'm positive that we're gonna need that last 72-inch, you know, that last 3,000 feet of 72-inch pipe. And maybe that, you know, maybe that 500,000 gallons of storage in the pipe is enough to, maybe that saves us 1 million gallons of storage above it. You know, I'm not sure, but just, you know, those sorts of ideas, you know, and kind of reevaluating as we add this infrastructure, is, you know, and then two, even with the work that we've done recently with Memorial Drive sewer separation, which probably doesn't have a big impact on it, but especially the work at 7th and Central and Western, you know, that could significantly reduce those CSO numbers, and so we're anxious to see what kind of impact that has on what we think the necessary sizing is going to be. Because we think that, especially with the Central and Western project, we think that a lot of flow that could have gone into the 72-inch and been stored in that pipe was bypassing it, because you had a 48 and a 72 that crossed each other and did not intersect. And then that 48 basically went to a small lift station and then out to the river. So you know, trying to, you know, it's a balancing act of not trying to, not needlessly oversizing things to make them more expensive than they need to be, but then not undersizing things and painting yourself into a so yeah.
This is state or federally mandated, do we?
Federal mandates, the states deal with it, the states mandate you guys. So it's administered through IDEM, and since you guys do not discharge into an interstate waterway, all of your correspondence with this is through IDEM. You're under a state agreed order, which is a judicial agreement with the state saying that you're gonna do this work. So yeah, but it's the federal CSO program overall that's driving this.
When does this have to be completed by?
The,
Pushing that out.
yeah.
We'll see.
Final completion is 2030, and what we have is we've got this phase of it being done, I think in 2024, and then we have a phase in 2026, and then we have a phase in 2028, and then we have a year or two worth of kind of post-construction monitoring, if you will.
Would it be smart to wait a year or two, see if regulations change? Because they've changed so much in the last.
They only get more stringent. They only get worse.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah, with
Is it better-
wastewater, storm, it's only gonna get worse.
It gets worse.
So it's better to have it in place.
Been just a long time with this, and,
Yeah.
and each time it changes. That's why, you know, it kind of bothers me a little bit when you say, let's go smaller. Because
yeah,
they
sure,
come down and change it again.
right.
And every time item changes, it falls back on us to spend more money.
Unfortunately,
It's
then
getting
it
harder.
falls back on the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unfunded mandate, 100%. So it's, you know, IDEM with their CSO policy tells communities that they've got to do something, and then
Find a
you've
way to
got
pay
to find
for
a way to pay for it, right? And that's the only way you have to pay for it is through your utility rates, so.
Yeah, the estimated timeline of what, if we started, let's say if we started this today, how long would it actually take to do?
So this is the timeline that we have. So the preliminary engineering report was submitted back in April to meet IDEM or state revolving funds timeline for this year. We anticipate we had the approval in June of 2021. That'll be more like probably July or August. And then these values are assuming that you borrow money this year. And part of that borrowing is that there's a program called the State Water Infrastructure Fund, which is $50 million that the state has allocated for communities throughout the state. And so by Connersville applying this year for SRF funding, they're automatically in the running for some of that money. So assuming that this moves forward under the, this schedule is to close in basically the second quarter of 2022. So we would essentially continue preliminary design, that's what we're in right now, and then our final design would probably start in September or thereabouts and continue to the end of the year. Then you would do your bidding in January and February, and you know get the contractor numbers, move to award in March, and then you would have your SRF loan closing would be in April of next year. And then this timeline is pretty stretched out. I'm assuming this is less than a 2-year project. It's probably a 1.5 year. But so, you know, so you would start construction probably in May of 2022, and then you would probably be at least substantially complete by the end of 2023, which means that everything works the way it should. And then final completion, which means that, you know, asphalt paving's been done and grass is green and the contractor's done, would be probably that first quarter of 2024, probably, I would say April, if I had to guess. So we, you know, that timeline's stretched out a little bit, but not a whole lot, so.
The holding facility,
Yeah.
will that be an earthen bank with a liner, or do you think it'd be concrete?
I mean, if you had asked me now, my guess would be that it would have a concrete base slab, and then it would be earthen sidewalls with a high density polyethylene liner, or EPD, and it's almost like a heavy rubber membrane type liner that holds it back. And that's what we had done in Columbus, and if I had to guess, I would say it would be something like that. That's a pretty cost-effective way to do things. If you were to make it like a 4 million gallon concrete tank, it's going to cost probably 3 to 4 times what a lined earthen basin does with a base slab.
Part of the reason why I was asking is, as Jim has pointed out, things always, they do change,
Yep.
sometimes drastically or not. But if, like he mentioned earlier, if time comes that they want a dome,
Yeah.
will the banks be able to hold that? That's something you ought to think about up front, or?
Yeah, if you had to
Or worry
worry
about
about
it when it
facility,
happens.
well, I hate to say that. If you had to cover that facility, that would be a challenge. You know, and it depends. And I would think, if that was a concern, I think the way we would design it is that we would kind of make the structure, so like in Columbus, we actually used 2 existing lagoons that were used by a chicken, it's Marai, right? It was used by, and that was a chicken processing facility where they slaughtered chickens and, you know, rendered them or whatever, and they had existing lagoons that they used for the wastewater. That facility either left or went out of business or did something different, and so those lagoons were sitting there unused. And so what we did was we basically cleaned them all out, put the base slabs in, and then put the liners in. So if you look at the Columbus facilities, there's 2 of them. One of them is basically a square, and the other one's kind of like a big rectangle or a big triangle. I would think if covering is a concern, then what I would propose to do is to make it so that you could span, you know, make it so that it's that you've got one dimension of this facility that's narrow, or at least narrow enough that you could span it with like a pole barn type structure. And that would probably mean it would be like an L-shaped, and I'm thinking that would probably limit it to like 80 to 90 feet maybe. I mean, you know, I'm familiar with a few people that have built pre-engineered buildings or pole barns that are, you know, 100, 115 feet wide, and I think you can span that at least reasonably. That's probably how we would consider doing that.
We'll just assume that's not going to be a concern.
Yeah, if it's a concern, it'd be a big issue for a lot of communities. Z-Dasher. And you know, the way the Columbus facility works, they're floating mixers. They're on pedestals in the basin. So as you dewater the facility, or as you drain the facility, those mixers run, and that should, you know, it's not going to get all of the solids to drain out, but you know, it'll help prevent, you know, just tons and tons of solids sitting there. And then we would have it so that it would be easily accessible by skid loaders or payloaders, so that you can come in and, you know, basically scrape that bottom slab clean. So yeah.
So all we need is money.
That's, you know, if money was no concern, then this would be the best job in the world, right? We'd solve all our environmental problems and clean our waterways, and you wouldn't have to worry about anything else. So yeah, exactly, and that's what this is for. There are a couple of administrative requirements. There is an authorized signatory resolution, which I think Brad, you had. I can't remember if you had brought that before them. That basically means that Brad is the person that, whenever you submit something officially to SRF, he is the person that has signature authority.
No, I don't think we've got that.
Okay.
We've just been moving through this process. I don't think so.
We can get that.
Yeah, well, I think, and then the second thing is a PER acceptance resolution, which basically is where the board of work says, hey, we've seen this presentation, we're aware of what's in the report, we agree with what they're going to move forward with. And usually what I see is that we wait until the public comment, there's a 7-day public comment period after this, and we wait until that's closed, and then submit any, you know, if there's any changes or anything, then we, you know, at your next meeting, you would do the PER acceptance resolution.
So it's something that's advertised? Rosemary?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Was
I mean,
was this public hearing advertised?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yeah, so the,
Because I didn't even have it on my agenda.
yeah, that,
It was advertised, it didn't make it on the agenda. It was advertised.
right, and that's the statutory requirement, is that it's advertised, a physical copy of the PER has been at the utilities office, right?
Yes.
For public view and consumption for the past 10 days, and then we leave that there for the next 7 days and keep it open for, you know, for anybody else who wants to go in there, review it, and make a comment. So, and there is, you know, the preliminary engineering report is a pretty broad document. So if there are things that, you know, if there are decisions that refine things, you know, it doesn't require us to go back and go through this whole process. You know, and so that's good. I mean, SRF is easy to work with from that standpoint, so. And in public comments, as I mentioned, you know, it's been available for review since July 9th. We have through the 26th. I will leave some business cards. If you guys want to email, call, whatever, we're more than happy to take comments. And I'll probably also just kind of draft up a recollection of the discussion here regarding questions and answers and that sort of thing, and just put that in the appendix of the report so that that's documented as well. So.
If Brad is the signatory to the city, is there an alternate, like the mayor or something?
No, not that, like, not that I'm aware of. I mean, just whenever, like, for example, if personnel have changed or something like that, then you just do a different signature, you know, you just do a different resolution that changes the signatory. And there are some communities that use the mayor as signatory. And that's completely fine. It's completely up to you guys and however you guys want to do it. So. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
So we have any more comments from the board?
No.
Okay, we have to make comments for the public. This is a public meeting.
There's no public here
Okay,
to
so
say
don't we
anything.
have to ask we can close the meeting then?
Clint, is anybody out there in the public want to talk?
You don't need to
No.
open and close.
Okay,
Close it.
So close the meeting.
Close the public hearing, reopen the Board of Works meeting.
Mr. Dow, I sent around a sign-in sheet, and it is here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I believe next on the list was.
Do you guys
C.
need any approval to continue?
No, we do not.
This was just for us to
This
talk
is
about.
for the hearing.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for asking.
So next on the agenda was the approval of the professional agreement with Kleinpeter Consulting on the comprehensive planning study.
I think we signed one of those already, is that not correct?
That's what I was thinking. I thought we did this last week, didn't we? Or last
It
meeting?
was something, it was for something else, so.
Oh, it was, okay.
I think the mayor was probably gonna talk about this, wasn't he? Is this the city's master plan?
For the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan
Yeah.
study.
Yes.
We had to agree to, that we're following the current one just for the other people to apply for abatements and funding
Senior
through.
living, right.
Right. So this is approving the agreement with Kleinpeter to find somebody to do the comprehensive plan for us.
We need to make a motion on this.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion to approve?
Second?
all in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And there is currently a survey out, right?
Yes.
Brad, what are some of the avenues that the community can be involved in the survey?
I'm not in the loop too much on this.
Contact Brian Durham at the chamber
Okay,
and he can send them a survey.
okay, very good, thank you.
Or you want to take?
As much input as possible is good.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, we cannot take D with E, F, and G.
but we
D
could,
is a resolution for the capital asset policy.
okay, but we could take E, F, and G
That's correct.
together.
This is creating the policy.
Yes. We've been following a policy, but we just never had a policy
In
in
writing.
place. Yes.
Yeah. I move that we adopt this resolution, 2021-14.
Second.
All opposed saying aye?
Aye?
That's a-
Huh?
All in favor?
All in favor, I'm sorry. All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Shook up there.
Okay, now we could take 15 and 16 and 17, and that's, the cable TV transfer, fringe benefits from the clerk treasurer's office, and also the grants for the council.
Resolution 2021-15 is a transfer within the cable TV department, moving $100 from printing to other contractual. Resolution 2021-16 is a resolution to transfer $3,500 from fringe benefits to deputies in the clerk treasurer department. Resolution 2021-17 is a resolution to transfer $200 within the council budget from grants to Board of Works.
Is that because of the increase we approved?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve resolution 2021-15, 16, and 17.
Second.
All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, H was the approval to recommend to City Council the speed limit change on Central Avenue from, this is gonna be from 3rd Street to 9th Street on Central only. The current speed limit is 30 miles an hour. Recommend to City Council to reduce it to 20 miles an hour. And that is based on the traffic engineer's recommendation for the traffic calming measures.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve this, send it okay to city council. To be real honest with you, I was under the impression it was 20 mile per hour anyway.
Nope, it's 30.
All we're doing is make a motion.
Just send it to recommendation for the City Council.
So moved then.
We have a second?
Second.
All, yeah, all in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was just kind of also, the City Council had voted on it in a Zoom meeting or an email, but they, to be official, they wanted to be able to send it back to the City Council to be able to do it again, to make sure. On department matters, Brad?
Howdy.
After you, Brian.
I appreciate your patience in that long report. You know, that's to bring this information to the public and give everybody a chance to understand what's going on. This thing is moving at a rapid pace. And I just wanted to say, while these guys are here, wish you could have seen the look on their face when we decided to move this project up a couple of years and try to get it, what, did that leave you a month to get the application filed and the information together? Yeah, maybe I'm overstating it with a month.
Are you saying 2 months ago his hair was black?
Yeah, I've got 5 kids, so.
But anyway,
It's better than the last one.
just to get things, everything is flying. I mean, the pace of having to check off all the boxes here. So this
Just-
meeting came
Just to
together
remind you,
pretty
you
quick.
still need to have our approval for you to sign those documents, this board.
Of course.
Just reminding you.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little quickly, I'll try to move through this fast. We've got, the commissioners have asked us to participate with them on a project to look into taking a water line out to St. Jude's. They have a real water problem out there, and so we've been working with the commissioners and talking about this project, and I just kind of wanted to let you know that. I think the commissioners are thinking about using some of their funds from the ARP funds to help finance taking a water line out there, and we are just discussing the possibility that that might happen, and I kind of felt like I should let you know that we're doing that. So far,
Do you know what if the plans are master meter and seldom water, or
don't know yet. It's all just,
or booster?
they came and asked, would we be interested in having them as customer? And I said, yeah, but it has to make sense financially, and they let us know that, you know, they're thinking about helping finance it. And I said that I would help them look into it.
The
So-
county is helping, or St.
The county.
Judas? Okay. Did you have a question, Becky?
No,
So, we're talking about it, and I'll keep you informed as we go along. We met with an engineer to see about, they're gonna put together a little feasibility study cost and see what that, just see what an overall kind of, what it might look like, what the cost of it would be. They've already looked at some costs of what it would take to rebuild their system and stay on a well out there. So we're just basically talking about a feasibility study to look at a cheap one, to see what it would look at, like to take a water line out there and see what, you know, if it makes sense.
Who's paying the engineer?
Nobody yet. I'll bring it to you when we have when we have a cost. and
County's not
everything.
gonna do it?
We may split it or something, but we'll see. I don't think it's gonna be, probably the feasibility study won't cost more than, I would guess, 10,000 or something, so.
Is the county gonna share with that, or was it all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know, we were talking about it, been talking through it with the mayor.
Okay.
We'll keep you informed before we get into it too far.
So you're not asking for approval or anything, you're
No.
just giving us a heads up?
We'll have a feasibility study agreement, and I'll come to you with it when we get it. This'll, I think that St. Jude's needs to show progress with IDEM, and we're making progress because we're talking about it. So this thing doesn't have to happen overnight or anything, so we got plenty of time. Also wanted to tell you that, you know, Waterloo Bridge 90 is getting replaced. Finally, I think they've been talking about it for like 5 years. That's the bridge just outside, just the Erie.
What time? When? I mean, estimate.
Next year, in the spring maybe. Anyway, we've been hearing about this. We have a water line that runs beside it, and we've been hearing about this for about 5 years, and all along we were hearing that our water main was not in the way. And then all of a sudden we heard that it is in the way, and you gotta get that thing moved in the next few months.
Is it in a way for the temporary bridge or in a way for the final construction?
It's in the,
Final construction.
yeah.
Really?
So are they gonna have a drive around, or is it gonna be completely closed to?
I don't really know about that.
Went over that stuff with us. All we see.
So Butler is planning the bridge project, which is done by the commissioners, and so I talked to Butler about getting a cost together for us. We can get reimbursed by the state if we jump through all the hoops exactly right. So Butler designed the project, so I've got them looking at putting together a number, what it would cost for them to make up plans to move the water line and all that. So there may be
hydrant right there by the bridge.
there may be a period of time that we have to pay for it to be moved and get reimbursed, but we're just quickly getting into that, so I'll, again, keep you informed as we go along.
You said that's Waterloo Bridge?
Well, no,
Yeah.
it's on Waterloo Road.
Yeah, not
Okay,
Waterloo.
What we call
Waterloo
Waterloo
Road.
Bridge is,
I understand where that's at, but I thought you guys said Waterloo Bridge, and I'm like,
Waterloo
why are we
Bridge.
discussing it?
Bridge 90 is what it's
Okay.
called, so.
as soon as you leave Connersville on
Yes.
Waterloo Road, where it humps, and
Yes.
right now they've got a metal plate stuck in it on one
Yeah.
lane. So,
And the last thing I just wanted to tell you about, in case people see workers out there working on the Park Road light replacement project that started. Doug Ludwig is going to be working on that. We went up, if you remember, I got your approval quite a ways back to
Yes.
take out about half of those and keep about half of them and rebuild them with new LED fixtures. And so people will start to see some of those light posts coming out.
And you have a grant to pay for the replacement, is that correct?
We do.
Was that private funding, or was that a grant?
It was a private individual donation, I guess. we'll say.
originally, yeah.
Yep.
And you don't need, the other two items on here, you don't need approval
Oh, I'm
for?
sorry, I forgot about the agenda. I gave you approval, I gave you some hot box quotes for you to look at. I would really like to buy the most expensive quote that you see. We looked at hot boxes, they brought a couple of them in here. That expensive one, if you look, the hot box we have now is about 40 years old. So this is a piece of equipment you only buy once every 20 or 30 years, so. That is just such a better piece of equipment. It's got reinforced steel that you can just look at it and see that it's much heavier. It's got a dump bed on it. The thing I like about it the most is most hot boxes are just heated, has burners on the bottom. This one's got heat tubes on the side, and it's got sort of openings in the top of the side that blow heat down over top of it. So it cooks it all through instead of just burning up the bottom layer.
Is this one brand from Arm Union?
So it's this, yes. Yeah, the one, so it's 45,000. Tell you the honest truth, when I sent all these quotes, I really hadn't decided which one to say. I hate, we can get, as you can see, a used or a demo for about 25, but it's just not the unit. One of the demos doesn't have the dump bed.
So this is a trailer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a trailer with this thing sitting on it. This better one also has a mounting place where you can put your plate compactor on it and haul it around with you on the same trailer. It's just so much better. I hate not to buy the good one, being that based on we buy them so
What
rarely.
about the quality of the steel of the heat portion itself? When that
Very heavy.
grader,
Yeah.
high grade?
Yeah. So, we can go, we could easily, I wouldn't be unhappy if we bought the one for 25,000. I've seen that unit, it's okay, but in
It
the
doesn't
end,
say on here from the difference between the 25 and the 32.5, what's the difference? Because they're both 4-ton hot boxes with dumps, they're both Falcons. And then all of a sudden it jumps up to 45.5. And the only thing it really says on here is some other things about hose reels and lights and stuff like that, and I don't see the difference between the prices.
Sealmaster didn't give you a rundown on what they're,
Right.
No, but I'd like to see what was in this, be able to see what for 45.5, well, I mean, that's a 30% difference in pricing for a hot box, and it doesn't really indicate on what it is.
it wouldn't bother me in the least to have them bring that unit back. I'm sure they would. They pull them around every so often.
I think he just wants a detail of what's options on the Sealmaster ones. He doesn't need to really see the unit, he just wants to see.
Yeah, I don't need to see the
details.
units, I just wanted to see one's a 4-ton hot box, the other one doesn't even list a 4-ton. I mean, I don't,
Well,
if I was to
also-
match these up next to each other, I'm not seeing the similarities between the two. Other than the dump, and I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest with you, with electric overnight heat, that's 2,200 volts. Do we have the power down there at the street department to be able to power this thing up at night?
That is an attractive feature, but I don't know how much we would use it. I don't know how often we would be using that. You sort of have to buy recycled material, and I don't know if we would use it for that or not. I like that feature, I mean, it gives you some options, but
So if that feature were eliminated, but you were still looking at the.
they just have a deluxe unit.
That's available.
Yeah, you can build one, but it sounded like if you started picking options that you could end up being more expensive to have one put together. This is a unit that they already have. It has these
Got it.
features on it.
Okay.
If we ordered one and picked what we wanted on it, then we might be getting something 6 months from now at a higher price or whatever. But I could have these come again. Some of these things you just a lot of it is just from me looking at both those two things it's just obvious which one was the best. Yes, it's a lot more money. So you're investing for the long term, and honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to buying the one that's 25,000. But that one, the biggest difference that I see in these is the heavy gauge steel on the steep unit. And the other difference is that this deep unit cooks that from the side, the bottom, and the top, as opposed to just on the bottom.
And that's with electric burners, side, bottom, and top. Is that also with the diesel burners? Because this one has
Yeah, they're
dual.
diesel. It's got a tube on the side that heats, it's got a, and then the top heat is just kind of a radiate, it's got these radiate ports that kind of flow over the top. The doors are handier on this unit. It opens much more safely. It's kind of got these bars that raise it up. You're not anywhere around the lid.
What about the cleaning, operating of it?
Well, the biggest thing with the cleaning of it is having a dump bed. Some of the units we looked at weren't dump bed. You know, then you're trying to get somebody to shovel, reach back in there and pull the gooey stuff out. With this thing, gravity helps empty it.
I don't know how you all feel, but I'd really like to see a more detailed, what we're paying for 25 versus what's being asked for 45. That's 50% difference. Yeah, it's twice the money. That's my opinion, but how does everybody else feel?
What did you use over here in East Connersville as a practice?
That is the $25,000 unit. The one I had a picture of on Facebook, yeah, that was this one. I've seen that unit. So you want more, you want a more detailed quotes or?
On the Sealmaster, other than it saying 4-ton hot bucks with dump, I'd like to see what, like, the RPM listed out what we have. You know, the Sealmaster doesn't list anything, any amenities at all on this thing.
You would have thought that they were bidding for, some at $25,000, they would have listed it like RPM did.
You would think so.
Well, also,
Maybe part of it is because they know that I saw the units.
well,
They brought them.
I was just going to
They
say,
mentioned this morning, and he's right, you know, I could have called and had you all come look at it, what was here. I have no excuse, I didn't do it.
it would not have to be detailed in here if we came to the site and saw it. But
We saw them I've been
did.
looking at these boxes for about just a couple of months, just starting to get an idea of what was out there and looking at them on the internet. The mayor and I were in Indy for something else, so we stopped by this place and saw the units probably a couple of months ago. And then I said, well, they were showing us this other piece of equipment that they had. And I said, well, bring one of those hot boxes with you and we'll take a look at it. Well, they showed up with it. And so
so you want more detail, or do you want to see it?
I'm happy the way it is, he's one wants more detail.
You want more detail?
I'm just one person. What do you guys want?
Becky, any thoughts?
Well, I understand, since he's seen it, it makes a difference for him, but I agree. When you read this, it's just a line. I wouldn't know what this means.
why don't I get more information together and I'll get pictures of the units,
Great, that'd be good.
which
That
I
would be helpful.
may already have, but probably they don't show the interior. But yep, I'll work on it. We'll bring this up.
Got the
So we're gonna table this one till the next meeting then?
Motion to table.
second?
All approved, saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Was the photos you sent us with your report on the tanks, maybe Mike sent those photos? Those are great. You saw the before and after, and that always sells the idea. I like that. Thanks for doing that, Mike.
The quotes on the lawnmowers, I would like to buy the Kubota diesel. It's just a little bit more than the John Deere diesel. The gas engine is quite a bit cheaper, but we really want a diesel. I just gave you that quote because I had it. The one that I think the Kubota is about $100 more or so, and it has a couple of, I hate to run anybody's equipment down. the John Deere has something about it that we don't like very well. It's a little problematic, nothing against John Deere's, but it's just got a big old belt on it that requires quite a bit of changing out. For the money difference, we're fairly familiar with the Kubota.
Are there service agreements that go along with these? Or is that not typical? I don't know.
It is typical that it has a short period of time.
Okay. And there is one with the Kubota?
That is a question that I would have to ask.
Okay.
Kind of what we talked about on the last quote too. I like getting information, you know what I mean, like, because the John Deere lists what it is. The suspension, the tires, everything. Kubota, zero turn diesel. I know by the 372, more than likely it's a 3-blade 72 inch, but I like getting as much information as basic as possible, but. Do we have a motion to approve Brad's request to buy the Kubota?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Let us know about any service agreement too.
All opposed, saying aye.
All in
I'm
favor?
sorry, all in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, saying no. I'm gonna say no on it.
It's hard, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry, Chief Harden. Would you like to join us?
Come on down.
Somebody wake you up out there?
I think you're going to have to wake up the line. I will try to be brief because I think it's already had a long.
Thank you very much.
A long go. I've got my presentation down to 45 minutes, so.
And you brought coffee?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Everyone should have a copy of my report, and I'll just real briefly touch a couple of things that responded to 389 calls for service during the month of June. That is down a little bit. That's going to mainly reflect back to transfers and our staffing situations. It wasn't a horrible decrease. It was just a small decrease. Did some training within our department. Also did some training for the fire department on some new airway devices that are rolling out. I've also got some other stuff there, upgrades that we're making within the department. Does anybody have any questions?
I do on clothing allowance. What happened where we have $12,350 on clothing allowance? When, is that once a year deal that we pay out? Or
Twice a year.
Twice a year? Like the 10th line down?
Yeah, that's a twice a year, June and December.
That's the only question I had.
All right. Is there anything else? Thank you.
Did we need to,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
it's all right.
I did have a resignation from one of the EMTs. He's been with us about a year. He really does have a good opportunity that you just can't pass up. I mean,
Is he full-time?
He is full-time. You can't fault him for taking this opportunity.
Were you already short on full-time?
I am already short on full-time, yes. So I am in the process of working on that even further. I mean, it's a everyday occurrence, is working on staffing. But EMT, so it makes it a little easier, not a lot, but it does make it a little easier. Not a medic. So I just would like your approval to accept his resignation.
Motion to approve the resignation of Mr. Baker and thank him for his service.
Exactly.
Second.
All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Clint, I should know this, but do you fill any open shifts?
I do. It goes in spurts when I can be available. Like, I was gonna work Wednesday, well, I'm in a webinar class all day Wednesday, so kind of stuff, but yes, I do fill some shifts. Not as many as I would like, but I do. Yes.
Clint, will you tell Mr. Baker, thank you for his service?
Yeah, will do.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, I believe, is on vacation. Is that? Brad, do you know? Catherine on vacation? Okay, that's what I thought. Chief Jones?
On the park department, I briefly talked to Catherine about this, and I talked to a park board member about this. Real disappointed that that playground was removed.
So was I.
The playground is situated right between a couple shelters. Families could go there while everybody else is sitting around eating, and it's not too far from the Miller Building. And I know they had trouble with the walkway they had, the swinging walkway that broke, but they removed everything. Now, I don't know if they're going to replace it later. I didn't hear that, so
I had the
was
same
just-
question. I asked the
I was
mayor the same question.
real disappointed seeing that.
He said that the bottoms were rusted out. I didn't see that because we have taken the kids
What-
over there
that-
before, but
Yeah, and that was never, the only thing I understood was that the swinging bridge part was damaged.
I mean, that's all we
And they
approved
couldn't keep
for.
people off of it.
Yeah.
They put yellow tape around it and signs and everything, and people still played on it. And the fear was someone was gonna get hurt, but everything's gone.
I don't know if Catherine asked us for our approval to take the bridge out,
Oh,
but I'm
but
not
they
sure if
don't-
that's
she
a
doesn't
park
have
board.
to.
Yeah, that's off that was a park board thing,
Yeah.
but I'm
It's
like
park
you.
board.
She announced that that playground was coming down. She
Yeah.
didn't announce that, so I do remember that.
That's what I talked to her about.
And I didn't see anything about, on her report, I didn't see anything about the Longwood Bridge. So I haven't been able to contact her on the Longwood, what's the latest on Longwood Bridge. I was kind of hoping we get an update on it.
They're still working on it, yeah.
I thought she
Just
was gonna have
money.
that engineer's report that she was waiting on from that, the wood guy that understood the bridges more.
I don't remember. Maybe, I don't remember.
Yeah, I still, I don't recall seeing it, but anyway,
Well, I
Sorry,
remember
Scott.
it's gonna cost lots of money.
yeah. There we go, Scott.
Thanks for waiting, Scott.
You're fine. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Everybody should have a copy of my monthly reports. We'll start out with overtime. It's about average for the year, 5,000, a little over $5,000 for the month of June. Anybody have any questions over that? Move on to the run reports. For June, we had 179 calls. And then after that, you can see the list of the categories of all the calls we had for the month. Does everybody like the way that reads out? Would you like that summarized a little bit more? Are you guys okay with how that is? I know it's a few pages, okay. We'll move on to the training. See a couple pages with the monthly training for June. I believe we had a total of 45 total hours of training. And then on the final page, we had a couple of inspections for the month of June. I did get my tablets, they did finally come in, so should be getting the guys up and getting them out before too long, getting them trained on it and finally getting moving. It's been a long process, but we're getting there.
I appreciate your guys showing up Saturday morning in recognition of one of the retired firemen who passed.
Yeah, Gary Mahone. I've worked with Gary for a few years. He's a great guy.
Yeah, they all had stories up for him.
Yeah.
About
There's
it.
always, it seems like there's good stories from the older guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
good stories back then, so, yeah.
But appreciate you allowing them to be there. And I don't know if that's customary or not, but it was nice to, I think all three stations came.
Right, yeah, it was good. I wasn't able to make it, but I did see where they showed up, so.
Yeah, good guys.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you.
all right.
And they put it on their
Thanks,
Facebook page.
Yep, yeah, they did. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Is Mike doing the, hello, Mike?
Hi, Mike.
Howdy. Should receive the copy of June report, revenue disbursements. Revenue's pretty good. Disbursements a little high for water and sewer. Basically, we have our, in water, our PSG payment was $18,000. And I think that's twice a year, so that came out in June.
The solar panels?
Yeah, and also our new meters we bought, that invoice showed up in June, so that's $34,000, half of it. And the sewer, the other half of the PSG payment, which was $51,000. And like I said, the other half of the meters was $34,000, so that's kind of why the disbursement was a little high for June. Overtime, $6,143. 4,000 of that was scheduled overtime, and half of that was due to the wastewater plant. We had 2 people on vacation, 14 days, and those shifts has to be covered through overtime. Service crew works attached. Let's see, the water plant, sewer plant monthly report is attached. As Dave said earlier, the Elephant Hill and golf ball was cleaned last month. We try to do that every 3 years on a schedule to keep them clean. Let's see what else. Water main replacement update. They'll be switching the services out up on 10th Street next couple weeks. The main is done, and they're working on EB Drive's main as we speak. So timing's still pretty good at this
Mike,
point in time.
I don't know what it's like right now. I haven't been up there since midweek last week, but where they're storing the pipe
Okay.
and then over onto EB, they're bringing a lot of mud out there onto the road.
We talked about that last meeting, because I drove up last week and there was mud everywhere. They scrape it and sweep it at the end of every day, they told us. So
Okay.
we're gonna start checking that. I'll just, as I go home, check it.
All right.
Were we buying 500 meters a year or?
For now, yes, 2 of
Okay.
them will replace.
Okay, so we're done with meters for this year?
For this year, yes.
Okay.
It might take us rest of the year to get them all in at this pace. These leaks and everything, so.
Hey, I'm really glad to see the leak on top of Third Street Hill.
We are
Sure the
too.
pressure's off of you guys. So,
Yeah, that was kind of a disaster, but it's been repaired and
yeah. Other than the accident we had, everything looked good up there.
I heard there was an accident. I said, oh, please stay away from that corner. So,
Yeah.
Probably ran through all that water and had an accident.
yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
The golf ball looks great.
Yeah, it does.
They really do look good right after they get painted. I mean, get cleaned, so.
Yeah. It's just crazy that someone would shoot the side of that.
Right. Any other questions?
Last year's total, looking here,
For overtime?
no, last year revenue versus disbursement is red, which I assume is negative.
Yes.
And so far this year, running total is negative.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of problems in water the last 2-3 years. Just trying to get control of it. It's pretty much, if you look at the claims, it's pretty much everyday stuff, other than this month. So hopefully it can come back strong towards the end of the month. But yeah, we are aware of water. It's been an issue pretty much since I've been here.
That wasn't your previous management, was it?
I'm not, I don't know who's talking behind me.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mike. And for the public, I'm not really cutting anyone down because I was talking about
We
myself.
were talking about you too.
Yeah, I know.
So, everybody and he mentioned the 3rd Street water leak. We were very glad to get that one fixed, and we've got, 4 or 5 other ones, not to that degree, that we're trying to get caught up this week for the most part. But everybody has really been working extra hard. There's been all these projects. Every time there's a project in town, that means the guys are having to go out 2 or 3 times a week and relocate our water stuff and the sewers and stuff to show people where it's at. I mean, we have got these guys running all over the place like crazy all the time, so I just want to speak up and tell all the guys at the water company, especially, thank you, because the workload right now is crazy. It's the same way at the office. I mean, we have so many projects and things, can't hardly keep up. So have patience with us on the details on some of this stuff, because it is getting more difficult to try to keep up with all this stuff at the same time.
Wanted to tell you, at the street department, on the report, the guys have been out trying to keep the properties mowed. Our new ordinance enforcer is keeping them busy, and so far they've just barely been able to keep up, but they have, especially with all the rain. I think, as far as I know right now, they're getting them all, they have them all completed, the ones that need to be mowed so far. Mike and Aaron have been working with the street department and the transfer station on MS4 issues, and for the most part, especially at the street department, they've been working real hard to get all their issues cleaned up, and there were a lot of them that needed fixed. That was a mess over there, and it's a lot better shape, so thanks to all the employees.
Brad, I have a utilities report, transfer station and the trash. I don't have anything for the street. Yeah, I don't have anything like that. Do you? Anybody else?
No?
I'll email it to you after the fact, I apologize. I think I thought I sent the transfer and the street department reports both together. I apologize, I'll get you copies of it.
Thanks.
The only other thing I wanted to tell you is that thanks to all the summer help, they've pretty much on their own been taking care of the cemetery. I don't know if you've noticed, but the cemetery looks really good. It's been mowed well. We haven't knocked any stones over this year that I know of.
That's a good thing.
And the fence looks good.
Yeah, so the fence is all fixed, so. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Appreciate it.
Chief Bolos.
Hi, Randy.
Hello, Randy. How you doing today?
Good.
Hi.
Good, bud.
All right, any questions on our totals on my sheet? I know overtime's up just a little bit, but it falls in line on the average of past years. It is vacation season for us. So any questions on that aspect of the report?
I don't.
Okay, so for the monthly reports, as you can see, we've taken 1,193 calls in this last month. Accidents are about average for the rest of the year. Traffic stops are up. Arrests, we have 93. Paraphernalia, possession of syringes are 11. Drug-related arrests are 19. So any questions on our totals so far? So our training, we had about 130 hours of training last month. Our RRT, our Rapid Response Training team, trained this month and did some SOPS training. We also have firearms instructor training, which Detective Rosser participated in that up at the Police Academy for a week's long school. Also, I just want to make you aware that this Thursday, Sergeant Brown is helping out the Children's Bureau. I don't know if you guys know what that entails. The Children's Bureau takes care of, like, they work hand in hand with like DCS and Meridian for children's services. You know, they help with the counseling, therapy, and whatnot. But they're having an event up here this Thursday. Starts at 10, and
Where at?
the park. Sergeant Brown will be there running a booth representing the city, police department, and whatnot. So he'll be offered, they'll have like activities. The Children's Bureau is going to have activities up there, so anybody can attend that. And also we'll have a booth there that Sergeant Brown will be working for fingerprinting and questions about, you know, how we can assist, you know, these agencies. Also a reminder for our FOP that we'll have a booth up there, and we ask that the community can come visit our booth and support. That's how we have fundraisers for all year to support our charity funds, you know, like our Christmas Crusade, Cops and Bobbers, and our college scholarships.
So this Friday at the park,
Thursday, the 22nd, is the Children's Bureau.
they're having it at the Miller Building?
think he said the pavilion,
Pavilion?
yeah. Outdoors there, I think. It's gone with by the Children's Bureau. So folks can attend that. I mean, it's nice to see what, you know, what's available out there for, you know, children in need, families in need. It's a good opportunity to learn the back part of our job and, you know, how we deal with things, so.
Should be a good day for you.
Should be, absolutely. That's all I have. Any questions on anything?
I really like what the ordinance enforcer is doing.
Yeah, he's
With the
next.
reports.
Right. He's
Oh,
around-
he reports too?
Yep, he's
Okay.
he's not on the agenda, but he will
Okay.
be put on the agenda. That's why I leave that blank on mine. I used to put numbers, but he's always gonna give the report, so.
I
he
bet
has a-
John's on vacation this
He
week,
has a
so we
better
won't.
report than I do. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Randy. Hey, Nick. How are you? Good.
Hello, Nick. Well, like you said, told Randy that I really like what you're doing on the report, so.
You know, thanks, try keeping as much information as I can show you guys on here, so everything seems to be going good. The street
Yeah, it
department.
copies well too, by the way.
So a big thanks to the street department guys for all of our city mows are complete. There might be one or two still out there we don't know of yet, but.
When did you take care of the one, there's one on 21st and Western that hasn't been mowed in,
It just got mowed this weekend.
it did, okay, because I thought last time I drove by, I didn't.
Yeah, the homeowner's out of Liberty, so,
Okay,
but yeah, it was mowed over the weekend.
okay.
Any other questions?
Good report, appreciate it.
Yep, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Have a good day. Like I said, John Pawsey's on vacation, so unless somebody's wanting to do his report for him. And we have any old business? Any miscellaneous business? Claims?
For today, July 19th, payroll was $560,980.27. Utilities, $183,731.85. City claims was $269,461.57.
If anybody's in the public out there still awake?
Motion to approve the claims.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Okay. We have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
All in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Now public forum. Nobody's out there?
Nope.
Okay. We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Adjourned.